Good morning, YouTube. Deacon Do here with the second part of our study of Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 20, which describes the armor of God that we as Christians need to wear and why we need to wear it. So, yesterday we discussed verses 10 and 11, which we described that the strength we get isn't our own strength, but is the strength that we get from the Lord for these battles, right? And that we have to put on the whole armor, and why we do, because we're fighting against the wiles of the evil one, Satan, right? That's why we need to. But today in verses 12 and 13, it's going to get into more detail of what we're fighting. Not so much who, because the who is pretty clear, right? Satan, but what. And so let's go ahead and start in verse 12. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Continuing to verse 13. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Okay, so first let's look at verse 12. Verse 12 tells us, that we're not to fight against flesh and blood. We're not to fight against humans in general, right? Whether they're Christian, non-Christian, cultists, atheists, agnostic, doesn't matter. We're not wearing this armor to fight flesh and blood. In fact, if we're not fighting them, then what are we doing, right? Well, we're there to protect them, right? Or to help save them or help guard them, right? There's a lot of different ways you can look at that, but we're not there to fight them. Who are we fighting? We're fighting Satan and everything that he represents, the evil that he brings, right? And sometimes that gets lost when, not just by Christians, but non-Christians, when they see that we're fighting against something. It's not a personal attack against a person, but the evil behind the sin that maybe that person is committing. If I go talk to an alcoholic, I'm not fighting the alcoholic. I'm fighting the sin of being an alcoholic, right? So I that gets lost a lot, and that's a part of that's communication, but also part of that's just our society where we take things personally. Human nature, I would say, not just society, but human nature, where if somebody attacks something we like, or even something we hate, but something that we do, we take it personally. And maybe it's not because they're attacking us, but we think they are. They're really attacking the sin or defending us from the sin. And so as Christians, that's what we're called to do, is to, again, don't fight the flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Heavenly places could be, the human body. And those evil things are the sins attacking that human body, whether it's even our own, right? In fact, a lot of times when we're wearing the armor of God, we're fighting our own battles. Let's go on to verse 13. And it tells us to take up the whole armor. Again, like yesterday, we're not taking up just the helmet or the sword or the shield, right? We're going to tomorrow get into all of the pieces of armor and what they represent. But here again, we are told to take up the whole armor. We were told that yesterday, I believe, in verse 11. Yeah, verse 11, put on the whole armor. It's reiterated again here in verse 13. Put on the whole armor. Again, the whole armor is not just the armor, but the tools that we are going to use, that we are equipped with to fight evil. Again, not flesh and blood, but evil, sin, the things that make humans do things that are outside of God's plan, outside of God's commandments, outside of God's law, God's rules, right? And so it also says here in verse 13 that we may be able to withstand in the evil day. A lot of people look at that as end times, when Satan rises up his army and tries to, fight God and Jesus and the earth, right? But an evil day can be not just end times, but can be any day that you're struggling, right? We had an evil day last week in Utah, and everybody pretty much knows what I'm talking about with Charlie Kirk. And Christians needed to put on their suit of armor, not attack other people, but attack the sin behind those people's actions. And so that gets lost a lot of times, is that the evil day can be just any normal day that you encounter something that's evil, something that causes you or a loved one or even somebody you don't know causes them sin. And when we sin, we're outside of God's law, outside of God's, I don't want to say God's love, but we're going against his will. And so the armor of God is not so much to just protect us, right? We need it. Christians need it. That there's no doubt about it. But we're supposed to use that armor to protect, to defend, to guard non-Christians as well from the sins and the evils of this world. So tomorrow we're going to look at verses 14 through 17, which describe the different pieces of armor and equipment and what they represent and why they're important. And then we'll close up on Friday with verses 18 through 20, which really talks about uh, prayer, which is another big tool, another big piece of our equipment. But I thank you for visiting today and going through day 2. If you haven't gone through day 1, go to the playlist and take a look at the day 1, which is, again, Ephesians 6, 10, and 11. And until next time, you take care of yourselves and each other and have a great day. Bye-bye.